What is the worst business decision you've ever seen? I used to work for a small mom and pop shop pet supply store that never got with the times in terms of technology and made shady choices. They were still using registers where you had to manually punch in the prices. They didn't know anything about email blasts. They created a regular email and had me spend 1 week sending out newsletters, 73 at a time, where I had to individually click on each of the 1,200 names in our list. They claimed the company, MailChimp or whatever, would get their customers' emails and sell them. Yahoo, Gmail, and Outlook couldn't do the same by that logic. But when customers complained about taking so long to get the email, they blamed me for it, saying I was taking too long to send it. They constantly picked products to bring in that were pretty much the exact same as the rest of the products. Chicken and rice, dog food, we have like 8 brands of that. What's one more? We had a large number of small animal customers who would walk out with nothing, but I think they only brought in a few new products maybe twice in 5 years. They would lie to vendors saying they sold more than they did to get more reimbursed during sales. They struggled financially but expected me to bring in a bunch of new customers on a budget of 0. They never updated anything. I can guarantee the bathroom had mold behind the paneling. They also didn't treat the feeder mice and rats well. I mean, I understand they're meant to be prey, but there were times when one would get hurt and they didn't do anything to help. One got its tooth stuck and was hurt. They moved it to another cage all alone with hard pellets where it couldn't eat properly. Every day I cleaned the cages, I would put some pellets in a little water to make it easier for them to eat. I offered it to the rat and he ate it up. He never bit me, and neither did the other rat even when I cleaned his ear. I didn't like that place, but I stayed for the animals. When they accused me of something I didn't do, I left. I felt bad for the animals who suffer because they're incompetent. Story 2. I used to work at the corporate office of a major water park in my state. The year before I started, they adopted a new business practice of offering a season pass to the water park and numerous other facilities for a meager $20 per year. No, that's not a typo. Previously, that had been $150 per year. Unbelievable, right? It gets worse. The year I started, they ran a new promotion where you buy a season pass for $25, but then you also get a $20 gift card back in the mail to a Walmart or some other store. You can see where this is going. 2 weeks after I started as a fulfillment specialist dealing with past issues, they fired the entire call center's staff of 30 plus people, heaping their phone calls and emails onto my fulfillment team of just 8. So in addition to all of our work creating and shipping passes, we had to take in all the customer service calls and emails. It gets worse. For some reason, they thought it was prudent to wait until we had some large round number, I think either 500 or 1,000 passes ready to ship before they would even order the gift cards to send with them, even though there were thousands of passes purchased and pending with this deal. So not only were there massive delays in people getting their passes, sometimes they just wouldn't even get the gift cards either because the season was starting and they demanded their passes now, instead of waiting for the gift cards too. So double whammy there, customers angry about how long it takes to get the season passes and then not getting the gift cards. After all this and firing the call center, they couldn't figure out why they were still losing money. I quit and the rest of the team quit as well within 2 weeks of me leaving. Somehow they kept afloat for another year or so, but then eventually the water park closed for a year or two and changed hands a few times. It was recently bought again, renovated, and this new company is offering season passes for $30. The circle of life, I suppose. Now, here's a good example of layering greed on top of greed, or rather stupid on top of stupid. Shoot, I'd jump on that $20 season pass down from $150 per year, wouldn't you? Throw in that GC from Walmart and that literally is like a crazy stupid deal for like $5. For us, not for the biz owners, of course. Story 3. I used to work for a large retail store. Sometime during my 4 years as an assistant manager, the co-manager, an older position that was between assistant manager and store manager, made some crazy, disastrous decisions that screwed over our business and store for a week. So let me set the scene. The store had been having major issues with our ancient and outdated refrigeration system, specifically the ones that controlled our freezers. The freezers, meat, bakery, and deli departments would all be affected, but not the dairy coolers. So one day, the cooler system just absolutely messed up. Everything except the dairy coolers went out. Around the same time, frozen dairy and meat produce trucks arrived. The store manager was off on vacation, so decisions came down to the co-manager. She made the decision to pull everything from all other freezers and coolers and pack them into the dairy cooler. This was combined with the decision to not only accept the 2 trucks, 75% of which needed to remain frozen, but also not to request our distribution center dispatch an empty frozen truck to store stuff in. Nope, all of it went into the dairy cooler. We even had all the customer shoppable bunkers and doors closed because those were down as well. Never mind that there were protocols for this exact situation, such as packing everything that needed to stay frozen into the freezers and going to other stores for dry ice to pack in and seal off the freezers, covering all bunkers and shoppable freezer doors with plastic and cardboard to insulate as best as possible, refusing deliveries, etc. The aftermath was that the store lost about $100,000 to $200,000 in physical inventory of frozen food, meats, and supplies for the bakery and deli as it all thawed and went bad. It took weeks to get back to a normal, optimal stock level, so add on another $100K or so in missed sales with those items as our shelves were just empty. The kicker is that the manager who made those obviously poor decisions didn't even get a slap on the wrist. She actually got promoted to store manager about a year and a half later. Story 4. I was just 18 years old, just out of high school, and got a service job working for a friend's dad's small company. I was driving the company truck on my route when I got pulled over. I was always a super careful driver when on the job, so I wasn't sure what to do. It turns out the officer had noticed that the sticker on the company's truck's license plate was 3 years prior. What was worse was that I opened the glove compartment and there was no registration and no insurance. The officer ran the plates, and sure enough, it hasn't been registered for 3 years. The officer said, "Okay, son, I can tell this isn't your truck and you're not friend's dad's name, but this is a $2,000 fine and legally it goes to you as the driver." I think he could see me start to almost hyperventilate. No way an 18-year-old kid is coming up with that type of money. My parents either. There was a reason I was driving routes and not off at university with all my friends. He continued, "All right, so I suggest you take this truck straight back to the garage. Do not finish your route. Do not stop for gas. Do not stop for anything. Take this car to your boss and refuse to come back to work until he takes care of it. I'm going to let you go now, and we have a shift change for the next half hour, so move, because if I see this truck again, I'm writing that ticket." I took that truck back to my boss's place so fast. I called him and told him what happened. He said, "Oh, they're on a shift change? Well, what are the chances you'll get pulled over again? Just finish the route and I'll see what I can do." I quit on the spot. This was like 15 years ago, and I'm still grateful for that police officer. All right, good cop, that police officer. Bad guy, that boss. Like, dude, that's how greedy he was that he was willing to have some teenager pay a $2,000 fine. I mean, would you trust in his, "I'll see what I can do"? Not me. I can totally relate. I worked summers at my local Taco Bell, and that's like a whole summer's worth of work for some stupid ticket that wouldn't even have been my fault. Story 5. In my hometown, a new soft-serve ice cream shop opened up 1 year ago. It was located along a main thoroughfare, but in a mostly residential area. Not far from downtown, but definitely not downtown or whatever. This was a small town. It was insanely popular. It was like a walk-up window type deal. Within a year or two, it was only part of the year because this was in the upper Midwest. The owners of the property didn't renew their lease, and the ice cream shop had to move. The property owners then opened up their own walk-up soft-serve ice cream shop. Well, the OG one moved to a way better location. This cute little old house right on the edge of downtown. Now, it was on a super busy street and intersection right on a bike path that ran from downtown along a river into a popular park. They opened their walk-up ice cream shop in the bottom half and a little cafe in the upper half. It was now 1,000,000 times more popular. The one in the old location does okay, I'm sure. Well, at least they were still there when I moved away after about 5 years. But literally everyone I know goes to the OG one. It's kind of a hangout spot, has a great location, way better menu, the little cafe is popular too, etc. The property owners basically kicked out a decently strong business that was bringing in money, rent, tried to take their popular business strategy themselves, and just created a super competitor. Wouldn't it have been easier to just sit back and relax and take in the rent money? Now you have a semi-okay ice cream shop you have to pay for, run, manage, etc., and have a huge competitor that outperforms you in every way because you force them to find a better location where they can thrive. Hold up. So, good ice cream and coffee in one stop? I'd make that a weekly habit for sure. Story 6. The grocery store I worked at was always last in the company in sales, out of 13 stores at the time. Finally, we brought in an in-store director who cared, and everybody was at least happy to work there. The day they demoted him, we asked the vice president of the company if there were any plans to shut down our store and move us to another location. The current location was surrounded by about 10 other grocery stores, and the demographic the store was aiming for, upper middle class, was not anywhere close to the spot they were in. But just a few miles away was a growing town with the demographic they wanted to market towards, and there wasn't a grocery store in sight. The VP said not only no, but that we had no competition close to us. There were like literally 2 other grocery stores across the street, and that after a remodel, the sales would go up. The next year, the store was remodeled, and I'm still working for the company, but at a different location now. Sales didn't improve. One of the stores across the street got sold, going from family owned to nationally owned. The company I'm working for decided that was a good idea, so they also sold their location to the national company. The national company closed the store across the street, moved their employees, and changed the name of the store to the store that I used to work at. 4 years later, there was no improvement in sales, and they were forced to close that location. Meanwhile, the location we had asked our VP to move us to had another grocery company built out there, and that store is thriving. Story 7. I used to work in the North Carolina prison system, and let me tell you, it was tough, especially when you factor in the scorching temperatures we got here during the summer months. Most of the prisons in the state didn't have air conditioning, and with temperatures soaring over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, about 32 degrees Celsius, for about 3 months straight, coupled with the relentless humidity, our summers felt like wading through a swamp. A few years ago, a correctional officer was hurt by an inmate. Unfortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence in our line of work. The state's response? Mandate vests for all correctional staff. The irony? The officer who was targeted wasn't even injured in the specific vest area, but in the uncovered parts. The inmates knew what they were doing, opting for minor charges, and guess what? The inmates were well aware that the officers wore these vests. If they wanted to harm an officer, they simply aimed elsewhere, around the vest. I heard it straight from the inmates themselves. So fast forward to today, and we've got anti-heat stroke policies in place because the heavier correctional officers were getting heat exhaustion. Plus, the vests inadvertently created a new way for cricket staff to sneak stuff in. Within a year of implementing the vests, half of the custodial staff had thrown in the towel, and trust me, working 12-hour shifts in heavy layers inside 85-degree Fahrenheit dorms was pure misery. In their attempt to solve a non-existent problem, they only created more issues and driven up turnover rates. It's a tough situation, and those of us in the thick of it are feeling the strain, both physically and mentally. Well, that is one hot smoking mess, and not just physically and mentally, but also financially. But if you're enjoying these "what were they thinking" stories, hit the like and subscribe button so you won't miss out on future content. Plus, it really does help me out. Stay tuned, and let's move on to the next story. Story 8. Back in the 1980s, there was a story about my dad and his brother, Richard. They inherited a small trucking company from one set of grandparents and decided to sell it to open a bar near my dad's old base. Richard, however, got caught up in some bad decisions. He got involved with substances and tried to bribe officials at a fundraising event. Unfortunately, he flashed too much cash and ended up getting ripped off by his dealer. To make matters worse, he accidentally used right in front of a police captain. When confronted, he got into a fight with the police captain and ended up getting arrested. The police found packets of money hidden in his car, suggesting he planned to flee with the money if things went south. Despite getting a deal by turning over his supplier, he ended up spending 5 years in jail due to repeated fights. After his release, he had no money or prospects, and most of his family had cut ties with him. He fled to South Carolina to avoid further charges. His relationship with his partner was tumultuous, but they had 2 children. Now they all live in a modest trailer in a remote area. I worry about my cousin's children, whom I've only met a few times. Recently, my uncle passed away from heart failure, a result of his junkie years. It was a sad event, but I barely felt it given the strained relationship with my uncle. Story 9. This one involves my dad. Back in the 80s, he decided he wanted to teach people how to use Lotus 123, Excel, MS Word, etc. So he bought a bunch of computers for a classroom and he wrote interactive learning programs and printed out manuals and such. Even without advertising, he had people asking to join his class. However, he was never quite ready. This Lotus 123 program could use more work. He wasn't ready for a class. This MS Word tutorial isn't quite done. The perfectionist in him wouldn't let him expose the less than perfect programs or classes to people just yet. He turned down paying customers for fear that it wasn't just perfect enough. He had taken out a loan from a friend to finance this, but never made a dime. He paid the loan back by selling our cottage, something he regrets to this day. And why? Because he was afraid to be flawed. That taught me a lesson, though. As the old saying goes, perfect is the enemy of done. He could easily have made money and taught his classes, refining the programs to student feedback. He could have addressed deficiencies by teaching in person. He was afraid it wasn't perfect, so it was never done. We don't talk about it or the cottage that we built together. We had the foundation and structure built by pros, then the whole family pitched in to build the interior when we were teens. It saddens me more because it was what he wanted to do and he went for it, but just not quite. Dang, the perfectionist in me can totally relate. Had I not lived by that quote about perfect being the enemy of done, you might not be hearing my voice right now between your ears. There's still so many flaws I feel like I've got to iron out on this channel too. So the fact that you're still here, and even better if you subscribe, really does mean a lot to me and helps me keep going, imperfections and all. Story 10. I used to work for a company that was losing money. In order to try and save money, they decided to stop honoring returns and refunds but still advertise that they did. Whenever someone would ask for a refund, you were supposed to tell the person that it would be processed in the next 6 to 8 weeks, then get them off the phone. 6 to 8 weeks later, when they asked where their money was, you were supposed to apologize and say their paperwork got put in the wrong stack, and that it would be put in the correct stack and then would be processed in the next, 6 to 8 weeks. If they complained about the length of time, you were supposed to tell them you could ask your supervisor to expedite it, and they should see it in 4 to 6 weeks instead. If they threatened legal action after months and months, you were supposed to tell them to contact the company legal department. We didn't have a company legal department, and then hang up on them. Then make a note in their account. No one should field calls from that account further. More than half the call center quit in a single week in protest of this decision. The company collapsed on its own within a few months. Story 11. I worked for a design and printing place for years, and the owner went from amazing idea to stupid idea on a regular basis. Don't get me wrong, the guy is a brilliant designer, totally took advantage of new tech every chance he could and made it work. But he was cheap and greedy, so he ruined what would have been lucrative long-term business relationships. So we did this huge order of promo supplies for a fairly big online casino. Huge for him, about a $20,000 order with good margins and the chance at long-term work with this company. While it was being picked up on the spur of the moment, he decided to pad the bill by about $200. The guy picking it up was the son of the casino owner, and I literally watched the boss do this while I stood at the till. The customer looks at me, smiles, and pays the bill with a huge wad of cash, and says, "I know it's not your fault, but my family is very wealthy. We didn't get that way by letting people rip us off. Tell the boss over there in the corner that he just screwed himself out of a lot of money because we love the work," in a voice meant to carry. I would have loved to see the reaction of the boss after he heard that, or at least was told that. Thing is though, do you think that boss would have learned his lesson anyway? For me, probably not. Story 12. My old company was internationally known in our industry as one of the ideal places to be. We could hire basically anybody in the world in our space to move and work in our office. It was such an awesome place to work. The CEO decided to cash out when a larger company barely related to our industry decided to buy us. The new company basically removed everything that made it great, then rushed to go public. The employee stock options were pennies and they drastically cut benefits. Every time there was a complaint, the answer was, "Maybe you don't understand our vision," or, "Well, we are a public company now." They also got rid of our office, which was located in one of the hottest LA neighborhoods that everybody loved. More than half of the OG senior members have left, and a large number of others are rumored to leave. I was forced to start assisting in hiring, and it was grueling. People would apply, believing it was our old company, then found out what was up and go elsewhere. Oh, and the stock? Yeah, that's plummeting. I hate the fact that what once was is over. Those idiots ruined something great. Story 13. A game shop in my area had a great business plan. They held regular tournaments and games along with a sweet membership plan. For $10 per month, you get a discount on tournaments as well as a $10 gift card. Essentially, it incentivized every single person who went there for any sort of event to spend a minimum of $10 per month. They did great for about 2 years and then decided to change the membership so that you no longer got the $10 gift card, and the store started prioritizing D&D groups over competitive gaming groups. This wasn't bad in theory, aside from the fact that D&D players weren't paying for entry and tended to spend less money. So they essentially chased away the customers who spent the most while removing the incentive for anyone else to subscribe. The number of customers they had per day did slightly increase, but the amount they were spending, on average, dropped significantly and they went out of business shortly after. Oh, okay. I had something similar happen to me late last year. My usual spot for getting my Warhammer 40k on had to close up. I don't know exactly why though, but anytime a gaming place has to close its doors, I swear a fairy loses its wings. Story 14. Last time around this time of year, I knew someone in their early 50s who sold all of their investments at a significant dip from the highs and decided to start producing and selling hand sanitizer in little bottles out of their garage, seeing it as a big opportunity with the virus. They spent everything on the bottles, labels, plastic drums full of sanitizer at a huge markup, hiring locals to fill the bottles and put the labels on, and then a website. By the time they had inventory, they realized they couldn't compete on price with places like Walmart or other big box stores that had finally caught up to the shortages by midsummer. They also didn't realize that selling on Amazon was gated for that category, so you had no chance of selling through there as a new seller. So now they basically have a garage full of old hand sanitizer and no savings. Well, money can really make you do crazy, stupid things, right? If you're up for more business blunders, you'll want to stick around for our next video. What's a dirty company secret you want everyone to know? Story 3 is a complete shocker. I'll see you there, and thank you for watching this one.